So before we talk about, or before we can talk about the Demons in Seattle episode and me and Tina's coming in contact with the Ghost Adventures team or crew, it makes sense to go back prior to what led to us being actually on the Ghost Adventures show or Demons in Seattle episode. Long story short, me and Tina moved into a house in Bothell, Washington, May of 2012, May 1st. And almost immediately, of course we didn't know it at the time, began experiencing unexplained phenomena. Items missing, phantom footsteps, items appearing that neither one of us owned. Slowly but surely that began to escalate into objects being thrown, pottery, plants, and then the loud bangs, more phantom footsteps, more larger objects being thrown, waking up to finding all your kitchen cabinet doors open, and occasionally, and I say this, occasionally, voices. One of the weird things we began to experiencing within 3 months of living in the home is the intermittent issues with the electricity. I'm talking about lights going off and on. It could be in my office, it could be in the hallway, it could be downstairs or the master bedroom. An example of that is you leave a room where the light is on and come back, that light is off. Or you're in your room and you see the hall light come on its own. And that's just for starters. That's just year one. Fast forward to year two, what the case is primarily known for were the wall writings, damage done to the property of objects, projectile, traveling at immense speed, and lodging into the wall. Mainly candles, sage trays, ashtrays from the sage stick or sticks. My office attacked and ransacked numerous times. Coming home and finding pretty much your house, your entire house, mind you, upside down. Things are torn asunder. Furniture is up on its head. Computer monitors are turned face down. And upside down crosses written with sage ash on the wall, the floor, and other areas of my office. A lot of people don't know or don't understand is we were having activity about 2 years before the nation, therefore the world, caught wind of our ordeal. And that was, like I said, through the Como TV interview and through the Travel Channel Ghost Adventures episode. You can say the Como combined with the Travel Channel Demons in Seattle episode is when Keith and Tina's experience went global. But that does not explain or tell or educate the listener or viewer that we were having these problems 2 years before we even appeared on the episode. In typical poltergeist cases, by the time the media and Ghost Adventures falls into that category, comes wind of a case, the house occupants are at their wits' end. And it's my belief that the poltergeist knows that. They've worked very hard to get the house occupants at their wits' end. The level of curiosity has peaked. Stress is up through the roof. Sleep deprivation is rampant. And the finger pointing insecurity, uncertainty has reached a new height level. And these are all the precursors to a case going public. The fire department by now has responded to 2 incidents at our home. 3 Bibles have caught fire. The EMT, the ambulance, has been to the home. And once again, like I said, in previous documented poltergeist cases, that's not unusual. Me and Tina are fighting the good fight, but we don't know what we're fighting for or what we're fighting, period. We don't know what it is. We've deduced that it's not friendly. We've come to the conclusion that it's a dark presence. And that duality is up against our love for the house, our love for our relationship, and our love or determination not to leave the house with our tail between our legs. It's my goal and my stance being this is my first house, to not be run out of it. And that mindset is what played a role in me accepting or wanting Ghost Adventures to come to the house and research it. That's what my intention was, and it's why I had asked, or after they sought me out, I gave them permission to research and investigate the home. You will see through this video that it was them that found me and Tina. I think it was the next day, the next morning, matter of fact, October 30th or October 31st, 2014, after the Como did the story of my house, the Bothell house, that I received a call, as promised, from Dave Schrader, who I was not familiar with, had no knowledge of. Dave Schrader called me. It was about between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. That day. I was at work, and I took the call, and our conversation was very brief. It was maybe 14 to 15 minutes at best. And Dave Schrader, who I didn't know at the time, does a show on Coast to Coast in regards to the paranormal, i.e. the supernatural. Dave introduced himself, told me his name, his last name, and told me he had seen the Como news piece. He was referenced by or referred by the reporter who was at my house, Elisa Jaffe. And he said he had seen the news piece and it was very interesting what he saw during that 2-minute, 3-minute spill on Como News. And then he asked me a few questions about me and Tina. He asked about the house, asked about the activity, and he was point blank and I was point blank. His question that he asked me was I the homeowner? And I told him, no, we're renting the home. And then he went into his spiel of how Ghost Adventures would be interested to take a look at the house, research it for us, and try to provide me and Tina answers. But he said since we were not the homeowners that he would need to get approval from the homeowner. And he asked me specifically, would that be a problem? And I told him, no, it would not be a problem. I don't think it would be a problem. Let me contact the homeowner. I can do that relatively quickly and get back to you. And he said, well, we would need to hear from him before we move forward. And I can sort of tell by the language in his voice or the mannerism that he probably thought that I was not going to secure an approval from my homeowner, at least relatively that quick. It was within 24 to 48 hours that I secured my homeowner's approval for Ghost Adventures to come to the house. And I emailed Dave after my homeowner said, yeah, sure. I'm paraphrasing. And Dave said, okay, my people will get in touch with the homeowner and you yourself, Keith, lender, and we'll talk about coming to the house. Dave Schrader introduced himself as Dave Schrader as the chief researcher for Ghost Adventures. That's the title he gave me over the phone. That's the title he gave me when we met face to face when him and Ghost Adventures finally did arrive to my house. Dave was very specific that they wanted to come quickly and that this was going to be a matter of weeks and not months. And I thought that was fine. I thought that was cool. We had been having minimal activity, what I call a level 1.5-2 of paranormal activity. So a week or so, or a few weeks, would be better than a few months. But for the record, as I always state when asked, the conversation of them saying yes to come to the house was no longer than 15 minutes. That's very important to know because those familiar with this case, Steve Mera, parapsychologist Steve Mera, and his chief researcher, Don Phillips, upon learning of my case, upon learning of my ordeal, I'm fast forwarding now a couple of years, but this is important. They did a series of interviews with me that lasted almost 4 months. They vetted me, looked over the material, did their own research, and that was about a 3-month to 4-month process. Compared to the 15-minute or less, I've been very liberal in my assessment, or less of the conversation I had with Dave Schrader. I attribute that to, once again, Ghost Adventures is a TV show. And therefore, the vetting process, if you will, as well as the true intention of why they're coming, is far from sincere. Steve Mera and Don Phillips traveled over 6,000 miles. I don't know how far Ghost Adventures traveled, but it was nowhere near close to that. But there you have it. You can compare a 15-minute conversation. It's quite interesting that a show that put a lot of emphasis on me and Tina perhaps faking it or over-exaggerating or making up some of our claims. They put a lot of emphasis on that in the Demons in Seattle episode without admitting or giving hint to their viewers that their vetting process was less than 15 minutes. So you, the viewer watching this video, please take that an assessment in your final analysis. Thank you.
Keith says he's also now working with a priest to find peace in his home, and the paranormal researcher Elisa interviewed offered to hook Keith up with the Ghost Adventures crew.
Right. Do you believe that an entity really wrote that stuff on the walls?
Oh, God, yeah.
That doesn't look like someone just spray painted?
No.
When Zach Baggins said or told Jennifer from No Bull Paranormal, or he asked the question, doesn't the wall markings look like spray paint? seeing that for the first time, me and Tina, I was quite surprised by that question. It was the first time I seen it. I was not privy to whatever interview Zach had with Jennifer of No Bull Paranormal when they arrived at our house. So I did not know that question took place. It never occurred to me or to think to ask Jennifer what her and Zach talked about. But so when I saw that episode, or when I saw that question for the first time, when the episode originally aired, I was taken aback. Number one, when Zach asked the question of, does it look like spray paint? I know now, more so than I knew then, that wall writings is one of the known phenomena with poltergeist activity. Poltergeists for centuries have been known to leave inexplicable wall writings on the wall. They've used various materials to write messages on the walls of house occupants. Pencil, crayon, paint, other items, like I said, that are sometimes organic, blood, plasma, and in our case, bone black, as we later discovered. But for Zach to ask that question as a paranormal researcher in the field, who I would assume has the knowledge and is familiar with some of the previous cases on record, where poltergeists will at times write on the house occupant's wall. Typically, they do this for various reasons. The number one reason, to conjure up attention, to create anxiety and worry and strife, but also to make the house occupants appear as they're making it up. What surprised me is when Ghost Adventures came to the house, and when they left, that they did not choose to take a sample of the wall, which includes the wall writings, with them. They definitely had the time, and it was at their disposal to take samples of the wall, of the writing itself, to have it analyzed, but they did not. So when he asked the question to Jennifer, does it look like spray paint? I thought that was very accusatory toward me and Tina. Number one, looks can be deceiving. When you're talking about the paranormal, when you're talking about a malevolent entity, nothing is as it seems. All the evidence that you've captured, some of it the spirits are giving to you willingly. Some of it they're giving to you to throw you off course. And what might look like spray paint to the naked eye, if you look closer, you realize that it's not. Another thing that the viewer did not know is prior to Ghost Adventures' arrival, I'm talking about prior to them arriving, period, me and Tina was trying to have the wall writings removed. Keep in mind, we have two dualities here. We have paranormal teams that we're working with locally, as you saw Jennifer, who was on the episode, and we have the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church of Bothell was working with us closely, and the advice from the Catholic Church and from Jennifer and other paranormal teams in the local area was, as soon as the poltergeist writes on your wall, you need to have that stuff removed. You don't want to give the entity power, or they gain strength. This is what we're told. I don't know if it's true, but this is what we're told. Remember, me and Tina know nothing about the paranormal, so we're just following the advice given on who we think or what we think are experts But everybody's giving us the same advice, and the advice given is you don't want that stuff on your wall too long. So prior to Ghost Adventures, we were in the process of having it removed. And that's what you see here is the letter to the producer of the show, Jeff Barringer, of me and Tina having a communication prior to Ghost Adventures' arrival of us hiring, key word here is hiring, contractors to come in and to renovate my office, which includes removing the wall writings. What you have to understand is important, or I hope you see as important, because if I was to hoax, or anybody who's going to hoax or do wall writings themselves, you want that wall writing to remain. You want it to remain till the investigators get there. And you want to try to fool or trick them into believing that the wall writings are paranormal in nature. The email or the communication exchange that you see with me and Jeff is to the contrary. It shows that me and Tina, are actively engaged in trying to remove the wall writing. We don't want it there longer than it has to be. And as you can see from the response, Ghost Adventures wants the wall writings to remain. They don't want us to hire contractors. They don't want us to paint over it. They want us to leave it there for the episode, for their TV show. Not for research purposes, because like I said, if it was for research purposes, they would have took some of the wall writings with them and had it analyzed, and they did not do that. Instead, for the wow factor, the drama factor, and the entertainment value, they clandestinely tricked me and Tina to postpone the renovation of my office for their arrival so they can film that wall writing and include it in the episode. And I don't fault them for including it in the episode. I fault them for the inaccuracy of reporting of what the wall writing is and how me and Tina specifically were trying to have it gone or removed prior to their arrival. Any hoaxer or prankster would have purposely left that for the Ghost Adventures or for the investigators to see when they arrived. And as you can see from the email, me and Tina were not trying to do that. So think about that as you watch the remainder of this video. When I told Tina that the producers of Ghost Adventures wanted us to cancel the contractor work on the home, specifically the office where most of the activity had erupted, it created a argument with me and Tina. Tina, more so than me, to her credit, was really trying to, for this specific purpose, not all, but for this, had already scheduled contractors to come in and repair the damage done to the hallway and to my office. We're both extremely frustrated in this phase of the attacks we're receiving, mainly because everybody, including the Catholic Church that we're working with, has been giving us the runaround. Everybody's not keeping their word as to the appointments and to the time and date that they've agreed to come to the house to assist us. And believe it or not all contractors who saw the wall writings initially on our wall accepted the assignment. So when Tina finally found a contractor company to come in to work on my office and to remove everything that you've seen in the episode, only to learn, and after emailing Jeff, and Jeff told me to postpone it, she was upset. And I can sort of understand, because help is far few in between. Nobody's consistent, including ourselves. And when Ghost Adventures said to postpone any renovation projects that we had for the home, that they wanted to film it, and as you can see in this third email that Jeff emailed me, he had a verbal exchange with Tina, because I told Tina that Ghost Adventures told us to postpone the renovations until after they left, and Tina, wanted to follow the direction of the Catholic Church locally, the priests who have been helping us intermittently, more so than me, was upset. And so she called Jeff, and as you can see from the email that you read here, Jeff emailed me immediately. And so you can see the tension. There was tension before Ghost Adventures arrived. There was definitely tension when they arrived, as the next chapter of this video will show. But everything, even this subtle disagreement about contractors coming in, Jeff let it known in his email, or tricked us into believing that they wanted this destruction as a means of investigating to determine root cause, as a means to assist us. Of course, we later learned that they didn't, because if this wall writings was that important to you, to your investigation, you would have took samples of it with you. But it was just for the wow factor, the entertainment value for the show. And it came back and bit us. As you can see, Zach suggesting that it's spray paint and other things, other innuendos, to make it appear that me and Tina have fabricated this phenomena just to lead them here. But as you can see, the emails, we did have contractors. Tina had scheduled contractors to clean up my office before Ghost Adventures arrived, and we postponed that. And that's what I want this segment, or that's what I want you, the viewer, to take away from this segment.
Fiction here. We all came here to find out if this was real or not. We're not leaving here until we find out, period.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to call bullshit on what Zach Baggins just said. Ghost Adventures, their schedule, or for Zach's crew, for Zach's team, the length of time that they were going to stay at the house, the Bothell house with me and Tina, or the length of time they were going to conduct their investigation, was predetermined weeks in advance. When Dave Schrader, after the Dave Schrader interview, after he interviewed me, and after my landlord, the homeowner, approved Ghost Adventures coming to the home, I received a schedule of what the team would do. I guess you would call it an itinerary, if you will. And as you can see on the video here, this is a snippet of the PDF that was sent to me and the homeowner. There's two teams that arrive. They call A and B team. The B team arrives first. They call the B team for responsibility, mainly being B-roll, what are called reenactments, interviews, scenery shots of inside and outside the house. They were at the house primarily 3.5 days. So what you see here is pretty accurate as to how long the B team were at our house. They arrived, they set up shop, they worked about 18-hour shifts for the days that they were there. They did not spend the night, they would just resume and come back excuse me, in the morning. But that's the B team. And as you can see, the B team spent a majority of the time in the house, way more time than Zach and his crew. Zach and his crew are referred to as the A team, obviously, but that doesn't mean they arrived first. They arrived on the last day and therefore conducted their investigation. Now, it's interesting in the video clipping of when Zach says, "We're not going to leave here until we get answers. We're going to stay here. We're going to conduct a thorough investigation." Their schedule speaks to the contrary. And I know that now because, I mean, Ghost Adventures is a TV show. It's a television show that makes entertainment out of the paranormal. And they have a finite amount of time. They cannot be at a location filming for an episode open-ended. However, when you take that constraint and match it up against poltergeist phenomena, you're really shooting yourself in the foot or limiting yourself to the evidence, because any paranormal researcher will tell you you have to spend hours, and I don't mean short period of hours, I mean days, sometimes weeks at a location. Poltergeist phenomena, and a lot of people get this wrong or incorrect, it's not about a haunted house. It's about a location. It's about an energy that seems to be bouncing off both or maybe one of the house occupants. And if you're coming in there with this short period of time, and as you can see, when Ghost Adventures said they were going to arrive, basically they have to adhere to the schedule. And the schedule that they gave me was December 4th. Yeah, we're going to arrive at 7 p.m. They did. And we're going to leave at 3 a.m. And they did. And you can see that's about maybe 10, 11 hours of time of being boots on the ground. However, it takes a while to set up. I said in my book, and I've said in multiple interviews, that the investigation that Ghost Adventures actually conducted, I'm talking about the actual investigation. I'm not talking about the time spent at the house. The time spent at the house is 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. No investigator is going to arrive on the scene and begin investigating right away. No one. None will. You have to set up equipment. Here you have Ghost Adventures coming in. They're not sharing the same equipment as the B team. The B team has to unplug and yank up all their gear and equipment, and Zach and crew come in with new equipment, new gear, and it took about 2.5, 3 hours to set that up. They had to put cardboard over all the windows upstairs and down to sort of create the nighttime atmosphere, total darkness, fear factor that you'll see shortly when me and Tina are in the house, of walking around in total blackness, no lights, and that takes a considerable amount of time. Cameras have to go in every room. I'm talking about multiple cameras. These are cameras with long cords, cables. You see the setup in my garage. You see the setup in my kitchen, my living room. So that takes time. Then you have to slowly, surely get into the investigation, but you also have to remember they're on a schedule. And the schedule is we're done at 3 a.m. That's about what the contract states. That's what the labor law and whatnot states in the entertainment business. On the hired hands, that they have assisting them. So it's a hard stop, and that hard stop is at 3 a.m. Well, if it took 3 hours to set up, imagine how long it's going to take to wrap up and get everything out of the house, take down all the cardboards on the windows, and clean the house and bring it back to the condition it was in prior to their arrival. So therefore, you have to allow some time, maybe 1 a.m., to begin wrapping up your investigation. So that, like I said, is why Ghost Adventures were only investigating this house for about 5 hours. And 5 hours in one of the most, perhaps, extreme hauntings in recent memory, 5 hours in one of the most active poltergeist cases on record. I'm talking about our house. 5 hours is nothing. 5 hours is zilch. You're not going to get a remote ounce of evidence, and you're definitely not going to get the activity that me and Tina witnessed. The activity that me and Tina witnessed has only meant for the house occupants. Rarely do researchers capture what the house occupants have been reporting. They might capture phenomena, they might capture an anomaly. They never, hardly ever capture what the house occupants themselves have witnessed. And I want to be very clear with that, because in the paranormal field as it is right now, based on television and based on movies, the researchers and investigators like Zach and others make it seem like their presence is what causes or creates the activity, and by that I mean the spirits are compelled to reveal what they have been doing prior to their arrival, based on a simple fact that the true researchers have arrived. And that's totally false. That's totally false. 5 hour is a time constraint, and poltergeist phenomena, keep in mind, is one of the most hardest investigations to conduct. And if you only have, if you're only going to allow yourself 5 hours, then you pretty much are not going to get anything. And that's one of the reasons why Ghost Adventures got zero evidence. They were not there long enough. And then I'm about to share toward the end of this video the second reason why they didn't get it, or didn't get any evidence.
It isn't as much the house that I feel negative energy from, but rather a strong energy surrounding Tina, which makes me visibly standoffish.
2 car keys, cameras, kitchen utensils. What is your name?
Jeez.
How long have you been in this house? Was the house built on top of you?
I decide to head.
I want you to try to imagine, for the duration of this video, try to put yourself in me and Tina's shoes. Tina's more than mine, but try to imagine that you're us for the remainder of this video, and understand that up until now, we have been reaching out to a lot of paranormal teams locally. We have been working with the local Catholic Church, and the response the majority of the response has been tepid. The majority of the response has been inconsistent. There becomes a frustration factor when dealing with the paranormal. I'm talking about from the house occupant's point of view. This frustration of being taken seriously. Me and Tina are trying our hardest to fight the good fight. I always tell people, running, leaving, packing up our luggage, our bags, and just saying we're done with it, never really set right with us, specifically me. Tina's there because I'm there. She's following my lead. This is my first house, and I will not be run out of it by something I do not understand. My career, or the years I've been in IT, have sort of molded me into thinking all problems can be solved. It's just a matter of what you want to apply to it. And so I'm leaning hard into the paranormal field because that's what I'm told to do. Individuals are coming at me and Tina with multiple theories of their own as to what's causing the phenomena in our house. Most of them are incorrect. And there's a frustration of those who are just thrill seekers and those who can't keep their appointment to the house. I'm speaking about the priest. Now fast forward to Ghost Adventures, who we were told through Como, Elisa Jaffe, her friend Dave Schrader, that they had a sincere interest in getting to the bottom of what it is we're facing. So we thought, me and Tina, that we were in good hands. We thought, I'm dead serious, the last thing we thought were we were going to be labeled hoaxers, exaggerators, or attention seekers, and for Tina to be labeled some demon lady based on the innuendo or suggestion that Zach Baggins said or did in the episode Demons in Seattle. It caught us off guard, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back for Tina upon learning on the episode of what happened with her and Zach in the kitchen, and we'll talk about that. But I want you to sort of understand, because this is going to be the portion of the video on YouTube that I'm sharing with you that sort of explains why this case has been extremely controversial. This portrayal of Tina as the villain. If you can't find the evidence, then pinpoint it on one of the house occupants. But as you're about to see, what was shown on the episode didn't really happen that way. That's not how that scenario went down or played out. Even today, when I rewatched that scene, and I was there when Tina saw it for the first time, so I can remember the hurt on her face when it was showed to the world, or Zach's commentary, I should say, was shown to the world, his voiceover, when he said about his uneasy feeling with Tina. That was the starting or the trigger for a mass media, social media attack against Tina, against her appearance, against her race, against her hairstyle. You name it, she was criticized on both Twitter and Facebook. And like I said, we have enough frustration already. The house being number one, the spirit being number two, has given us enough frustration to live on for the rest of our lives, the last thing we need is to be falsely accused and to be ridiculed and demeaned and trolled in the manner in which Tina and myself were trolled, specifically Tina. Yes, we're all adults. We're grown. We're raised to understand and say, hey, names don't hurt. But they really do. And when you come forth with a claim like we did, we never lied, and we're trying to be sincere to the public. I'm talking about the paranormal public. We're trying to be sincere. We're opening up our lives. We're opening up our house, our home. We're extremely vulnerable. The house occupants to strangers are extremely vulnerable. And you're telling us, you're literally telling us to our face that you're going to solve this, that you're going to be here to the end, that this is your calling, this is your field. We've called the right people. Ghost Adventures, Zach Baggins and crew, Aaron and anybody else, Dave Schrader, anybody else. You've called the right people. You can rest now. You can take that burden off your back and give it to us, because this is what we do. I'm Zach Baggins. This is what I do. I'm going to figure this out, and we're going to live and have a productive day afterward, meaning you and Tina. That's what we expected, but that's not what we got. And this is the chapter where I talk about it. What people don't sort of understand, or what was impossible for you to understand, but today is the day you find out the truth. What viewers of that episode don't understand is what you saw and what actually happened are polar opposites of each other. This scene, like I said, is very controversial in the sense of it sent the investigation in the wrong direction as far as fact-finding. We got a lot of drawback or blowback from the social media blogosphere, all negative, based on this scene alone. And what was interesting is that's not how it happened. As you watch the scene, I'm going to play it over and over the next few minutes because I want you to really focus. We're asked, me and Tina, or told and asked, and we oblige, to walk around the house in total pitch darkness. You can see we're sort of hand feeling around even our own home, specifically around the kitchen area where there are items in our path that we can't see. It's pitch black. And by pitch black, I mean pitch black. Your eyes are essentially closed. And how is that? Why is that? Well, there's no light coming in from the outside, from the neighborhood. All the windows, keep in mind you, have been cardboarded up. This is what the production team does, and it took them a while to do this. Before the investigation even started, they have to cover, for lighting and other purposes and other reasons, all the windows. They don't want light coming in from the outside. They have to get a controlled environment, turn our home into a studio, pretty much. Well, it's nighttime, and therefore we're roaming, and what you see is what the infrared camera shows you. And as you can see in the kitchen, there's a scene where Zach is coming towards one of the cameras, and you can see how dilated his eyes are, how wide open his retinas are. And it's because even Zach can't see anything. is because it's pitch black. Now, we were told to walk around, ask stupid questions, look at the ceiling, do this, try to, conjure up some activity. And the things me and Tina witnessed never happened like that. The activity happens on its own. It doesn't need you to ask it to do something. Poltergeists do things because they want to, and they do it on their own terms. So now, as you can see, Tina's in the kitchen, and Zach is nearby. And what they edited out, probably because of time constraints, is Tina has been for several minutes asking, has anybody else or does anybody else smell sage? And by that I mean burnt sage. Now that's very interesting. It should be alarming, or it is to me and Tina, because we have in the past smelt burnt sage. And usually when we smell burnt sage, it means just that. Sage is burning somewhere. We didn't start it, we didn't light it, or it means an activity is about to erupt. Now, Tina, like me, is trying to let everybody know, those in the command center in the garage, and Zach, who is in the room with us. Well, Zach has an earpiece in his ear that he's constantly in communication with the people in the garage, as are we. And as we're walking around, she's saying, I smell burnt sage. Well, the infamous scene where Tina and Zach come face to face, the Zach enthusiasts were laughing at and scolded Tina very badly about. Tina doesn't even know Zach is there. And obviously Zach doesn't even know Tina's there. Nobody can see the other unless or until you're a few inches from them. Tina is trying to home in on where the smell is coming from, where the sage is coming from. She's using her nose to narrow down the search. And she's getting very close. As you can see on the pictures in the video, there's a sage stick on the kitchen table. Well, this was the sage stick that was used hours earlier for a reenactment upstairs of when the sage stick caught fire. Somebody, and we'll never know, sat it down on the kitchen table, and it was probably still smothering. And Tina is trying to home in on that. She doesn't know about the reenactment. She doesn't know the sage stick is there because it's pitch black. Only thing she knows is I smell burnt sage. Therefore, my memory tells me, since y'all the researchers, to get ready. Something's about to happen. Well, when she meets Zach face to face, and truth be told, as you can see, there was a reaction. Zach did scream out, and notice that Tina did not, but Zach did. And you can't hear it because it's edited out, this voiceover. Everybody bust out laughing. The people in the garage, Dave and all the others who are in there watching and observing, are laughing. And Zach is sort of still shooken up. He goes around the table, but look at him closely. I want you to narrow it down on his face. He's not scared anymore. He's not worried. He's not having a look of fear for Tina. He's smirking and smiling. Why is he doing that? Because we're all laughing at Zach. Tina told Zach minutes later, that was edited out, she told him, Zach stopped acting like a pussy. Because why should you be scared? You don't live here. And when she said that, the people in the garage, Dave Schrader included, we all busted out laughing. Now, we did not know, me and Tina did not know, that Zach Baggins is famous for being scared or frightened almost in a girly fashion on his own show, and that has become one of his trademarks. We did not know that, so it might have been a little bit off-putting for Tina to tell him to stop acting like a pussy, but as you can see, it was a moment of needed levity, because even Zach, as you see him standing by the kitchen table after his near headbutt with Tina, He's sort of smirking, he's sort of smiling. And Tina asked the question, and even Ghost Adventures put the question in the episode, do you smell sage? And that's a direct question she's asking Zach. And Zach is not responding to her. He's not even answering Tina's question. He's sort of coming off the laugh that everybody in the garage has had, and he himself is sort of chuckling about. But fast forward 2 months or 3 months later to February of when the episode aired. What you see here happened in December. And fast forward to February of 2015, you hear voiceover. That's done in studio. That's called post-production editing. Zach is now back in the comfort of his own studio. They have hours and hours of video footage, only 45 minutes to tell a story. And they've come to the conclusion that the house is inconclusive. There was no evidence. However, this is TV. TV requires drama. TV requires dialogue. TV requires a little controversy. And we're going to make Tina out to be the bad guy, or in this case, the bad gal. Zach saying in voiceover, I had an uneasy feeling, or Tina, or I'm sensing negative energy. He's saying that because there's no way you can quantify that. A feeling, a hunch, intuition, although it might be true in some instances, you cannot quantify that. You cannot walk into a scientific room and say, this is my evidence, and there's nobody that can verify Zach feeling that way. But if you look closely and you focus on Zach as he goes toward the kitchen table, you can see that he's smiling and smirking. He's not in shriek or fear. And that's what I want the viewers and the listeners to pay attention to in this video. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much how that scene transpired. It was never a moment of where Zach was scared or fearful of Tina, at least not visibly. He did not acknowledge that in the time that he was at the house. I mean, we're the house occupants, I would think, and I'm told this, and the listener can verify this if it's true. The house occupants are the first and last to receive all information pertaining to the house. That's evidence, that's hunches, that's suspicion. It should never be a us versus them. And if you look at the episode and how we were portrayed and how the guys were critical, it's definitely, and I mean definitely, an instance of us versus them. Keith and Tina versus Ghost Adventures. And that's the first paranormal team that's coming to the house that made us feel that way. We've had a lot of teams come in. Usually the paranormal team comes in and they're on your side. They don't have to drink the Kool-Aid of everything that you're telling them, but they're on your side. They got your back. And if they have questions or hunches or suspicion, they ask you. They're direct with their questions because they want to get to the truth. They want to get to the facts. What you saw on Demons in Seattle episode, that was the first time we saw that and heard that. And it did not play out that way. Like I said, when a house is pitch black and you can't see anything and you smell burnt sage, and everybody in the house, including Zach and everybody in the garage, is telling you that they're there to receive evidence and they want you and Keith to conjure up something, and we smell burnt sage, we thinking, because we've had it happen before, that something might be about to happen. Tina's trying to locate it in the pitch dark. It's not one of those instances where you're live filming and you say, hey, can we turn on the lights real quick? I need to look for something. No, the house is virtually black. We're live. It's pitch black. And she's trying to find something. And she's so happened to bump into Zach. And like I said, what's done at the Bothell house and what's done in studio 2 months later and post-production is strictly for entertainment purposes. But as you can see, Zach he gets no negative blowback from this. It's Tina. Tina gets the negative blowback. Tina gets the innuendo, the aspersion, the doubt, the suspicion. And as you can see from the reaction of those who saw the show, and I just gave you a snippet of what Twitter was saying about Tina and myself, there were thousands of posts, there were death threats, there were hate mail, there was stuff written on Facebook. Her family made her very uneasy when they caught wind of it because everybody's receiving this stuff. And nobody from Ghost Adventures is coming to our aid or our defense. Matter of fact, they're doing the opposite. Zach is tweeting out during that time of after the episode aired that he doubts our claims are real or are sincere. So Tina becomes the bad guy. Keith and Tina become the couple that wasted Ghost Adventures' time, and therefore we're the villain, specifically Tina. And it's unfortunate, and like I said, that was one of the reasons why we broke up.
Through Nikki, Carissa, and other people who understand the paranormal, you can't always get it the first go around.
No, I mean, entities and spirits, or whatever you want to call them, are not circus animals. I've gone into many places multiple times and not necessarily gotten much, yet there are very credible homeowners and clients that continue to have issues. And I always thought it was kind of funny that they did kind of make those, implications after the fact, because I've never really seen them do that at a case. And in fact, I've watched cases that they've done that to me seemed far less credible than yours, and yet they didn't. So
months. Of course, I had inquired because, obviously being the house occupants, we want to know what you found while we lent our house. We did lend our house to them for 3 days for the reenactments, but for the lockdown for about 11 hours or whatever. But no, there was no communication as to, hey, we're still, digesting stuff. We'll get back to you. When America saw, the world for that matter, saw the episode on Ghost Adventures, that's the same time we saw it, with no forewarning, no hint. They did call.
No advance copy for you to look at.
Yeah, right. Okay. They did invite us for aftershocks. We got the notification about I would probably say about 5 days before the show aired, and no, actually we got the invitation for aftershocks after the show aired, which is kind of weird because we were very upset, as well as our friends and family, after seeing the episode, and they wanted us to do the aftershocks. My girlfriend, understandably, and I turned that down because, like I said, others that came to us and said, who had seen paranormal events in our house were kind of dumbfounded the way we were portrayed. And it's just not me going out on a limb saying, crying foul just because they didn't find anything. People have come to me privately who have no bias whatsoever to say, hey, this is kind of weird episode. I've been watching Ghost Adventures for a number of years. This is just kind of weird to me. I don't know where they were going with this, but it didn't look like they were ever on your team, is what Sana told me.
Almost like from the beginning they were trying to disprove your claims, which is kind of anti their normal take on things, where they usually jump headfirst into trying to support the claims versus necessarily trying to debunk them. That's very interesting that they would have, I guess, the gall, to ask you to come on another show after making the implications that they did after the first airing. I find that rather interesting, to be honest with you. I don't think I would necessarily be any different of a mindset than you were if they were to do that to me and then say, oh, by the way, we'd like to have you on our other show. No. There's other routes I can tell my story. Especially when you guys were so out of character for how they normally act.
Yeah, it was very weird. I think, it's two angles they wanted to go with the show. Was if they had found evidence, then they would have spun the show in a way of, we're here to save the day, we're here to rescue these people. However, they did not find any, because like I said, the dialogue that we have, we would have felt some kind of thing or animosity because we were here with them for a time period. We got none of that. There was nothing telegraphed while they were here. Zach was very inquisitive while here. He's asking questions and whatnot. His people were asking questions and whatnot. So it looked like they were on the up and up. And that's why it was more pulling a rug from underneath our legs when we saw it aired, because whether you find it or not, when you're asking these questions, I'm thinking you're at least to the extent of understanding, hey, if this is a poltergeist, it's going to be extra hard to investigate, especially for the limited time that we're here. We don't even know if it's demonic, and if it's demonic, then there goes, some extra time well needed as well. But just to put it in the light of, I could see if there was an element, and the show did not reveal any element of anything being hoaxed or staged. It was nothing to say, yeah, that's man-made, that's man-created, or,
Okay. Just a quick kind of follow-up question, because I've heard rumors that some shows that supposedly tape in one night actually tape over several nights. And so they were actually only in your home for, you said, approximately 11 hours over one night, correct?
Yeah, for the Zach and the investigation of, his guys, that was only one night. Yes, there was no 2 nights, 3 nights. That was only one night. When they showed up about 8 p.m., it takes them about 2 hours to set up camera work, equipment. I went to my garage, is where they had their, command center, if you will. And then about 11 p.m., they're ready to go. Green means go. And about 11:30, 12 midnight, me and Tina are out the house, and the house is there till 7 a.m., 8 a.m. I came back to the house about 7 a.m. the next morning before I went to work, because I thought it would still be here and maybe have some kind of feedback for me. But when I got here at 7 a.m., house was clean as a whistle. These guys were gone.
Wow.
Keith and Tina now leave their house and go to a hotel for the night so that we can focus on our own investigation of the home.
What I'm going to say is, if this is real, if this entity has the ability to make fire, has the ability to write on walls, what's happening in this house may be one of the most powerful hauntings that America's ever heard. For us to be able to investigate this, we want to capture this. We want to see this happen. We have to capture our own proof. I think that, we would have to experience it if it happens as much as you say.
I'm not a paranormal investigator, and even I know, with the little knowledge I have about the paranormal, let alone paranormal investigations, that the investigator themselves, rarely do they see and witness the phenomena that the house occupants are reporting. Me and Tina had been reporting numerous activity in our home throughout the years that we've lived there. And we would never back down off that claim. We own that. I own that. Excuse me. Everything I said that happened, you can bet your bottom dollar, your last dollar, your 401k, your student loan, your firstborn, your infant child. Everything that I said happened in that house that we saw happened the way that we reported it. Now, what I later learned, and you can learn this too, and this information is out there to be found and discovered. It just requires a little bit of reading, and that's something that we've gotten away from doing as a whole. But Nothing that we've reported, me and Tina, to Zach, to Ghost Adventures, to the producers of the show, to Dave Schrader, to Elisa Jaffe, to Como News, nothing we've reported or stated is outside the realm of possibility of poltergeist. Poltergeist is a word that you don't seldom hear in the paranormal community. I'm talking about the television, the entertainment side. You hear the word demon more than you hear poltergeist. Poltergeist, in layman's terms, is a German word. It means noisy ghost. And poltergeist for centuries, going back, we're talking 13th, 14th, 11th, 12th, 9th, 8th century, when the first cases were documented of doing the similar things that we're reporting. Objects thrown, spontaneous fires, mysterious water puddles, wall writings that are sometimes in foreign language, wall writings that are inexplicable. Our home was not the first home to encounter 666 by a poltergeist. Our home will not be the last. These things are what you call traits or characteristics that have been documented in other poltergeist cases the world over. Zach Baggins, in his egregious attempt to make himself look good, knows this already. I refuse to believe, even though we all have an opinion of what Zach and crew are. Are they legit? Are they serious? Is it entertainment only? Even if it was just entertainment only, you still have to acquire a little bit of knowledge to even approach this subject matter. Therefore, Zach Baggins knows that whatever I'm saying exists within the realm of poltergeist. Now, you don't hardly hear the word poltergeist in this episode. You hear the word demon. And there's a reason for that. It's to gain ratings and conjure up viewership. Nobody's going to tune in on the poltergeist in Seattle. Not as nearly as the title Demons in Seattle. Poltergeist, meaning the things that they do, we've experienced. And for Zach to say to me and to the viewers right here and there, you just heard it, that they want to experience and capture and see what we have been experiencing. The researcher, the investigator, you can ask the ones who investigate poltergeist phenomena, know that you are not going to hardly ever witness what the house occupants witnessed. Number one, you don't live in the home. Poltergeists are not haunting homes. Poltergeists are haunting individuals. The individuals, not the house, is the key. There are things that me and Tina set in motion before this activity erupted. Some we know, some we might never know. Activity seemed to spike at certain times, either through excitement, through anger, through argument, through frustration. There's a whole bunch of variables, some that we'll never know, and I'm talking about the paranormal community, we'll never know of what triggers a poltergeist attack. You cannot come to a house and just say, we're going to put you and Tina over here, and we want the poltergeist to do to us what they've been doing to you. You can't do that. That is gross negligence. And why I call it gross negligence is because Zach knows this. He knows what everything I'm saying is true. He's asking these rhetorical questions to make it look and appear that he's skeptical. He's trying to show his peers in the community who have been dinging him over the last months and years about every episode finding evidence, and he's trying to show his peers that he too can step outside the box and be analytical and critical and super skeptical. Well, in doing so, he made himself look even more foolish by the questions that he's asking and the accusations that he's making. It is not going to be in the poltergeist's benefit to burn Bibles, to create fires, and to write on walls with me and Tina not in the home and just the home occupied by ghost adventures. No poltergeist on this planet will ever do that. They're never going to show their cards or their hand to the researcher. The researcher has to go in knowing that before their investigation begins and must take steps to try to get evidence besides the wow factor of we want to see Bibles catch fire ourselves. We want to see posters catch fire ourselves. We want to see objects levitate ourselves. You, the researcher, I'm talking about Ghost Adventures, are not going to see that. It is not going to be for your benefit or the poltergeist's, I guess, benefit to display that for you. Because what would happen then? What would happen then if the poltergeist lifted a chair while Zach and Aaron were taping? Huh? Okay, so there you have it. It's not going to happen. The only way you can get evidence is you have to apply a different methodology to get other pieces of evidence, and you can do that, but you're constrained by time, 5 hours, and you're constrained by telling Keith and Tina, we're going to put you in a hotel while we conduct our lockdown. And what I told Zach and his producers before the show, this is weeks before they arrived, is majority of the activity happens during the day. If the majority of the activity happens during the day, when do you think would be the best time to conduct your lockdown? It might be during the day. Now, I know a show that's famous for its lockdown performance of we're always going to do the lockdown at night. But guess what? All cases are different. Poltergeist cases are extremely different. Each home is different. Why are they different? Different people, different homes, different location, different history underneath the house, different occupants or previous occupants, different state, different geological conditions, different location. All these variables into play. Therefore, why are you sticking to a format that says we're going to conduct our lockdown like we always do between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m.? Well, guess what? That's when our house is the most peaceful. Okay? Our house is the most active during the day. Specifically, when me and Tina are home together. And that is one of the reasons, or the third reason, I wanted to state as to why Ghost Adventures didn't get any evidence. Okay?
Well, they asked the owners of the home Keith Linder and his partner Tina to leave the house, to vacate the house and go and stay in a hotel for the evening. Now, we always argue the point, if paranormal phenomena is taking place whilst a couple are there, and you want to witness paranormal phenomena, then why change the environment? If you want to try and capture something, then you want it in the same conditions as it normally would be, which just means that they actually would be there, staying there the night. But that wasn't the
The baby's voice is an alert that goes off whenever something crosses the motion detector set up by psychic medium Carissa Fleck and Nikki Paranormal. They spent several weeks investigating the home of Bothell resident Keith Linder. He says that voice was caught on surveillance camera when nobody was in the house, along with what seems to be a shadow moving near the motion detector. A few minutes later, a different alarm goes off. It's the latest evidence of what he says is 4 years of poltergeist activity in his home.
Not all, but most of all my cabinet doors are open.
He found his upstairs office completely trashed and objects thrown.
Scissors are in the wall.
Even a candle striking the wall with so much force it left a large hole. Here, watch it again. Linder just wanted an explanation for the phenomena.
A previous team, Ghost Adventures, had been in and left with zero evidence and kind of painted us in a wrong light of attention-getting, hoaxing.
But he refused to give up. Linder convinced parapsychologist Steve Mera and paranormal specialist Don Phillips from the UK to investigate using a room full of equipment that they say recorded a smoke detector being knocked off the wall.
Keith, let's go.
Okay. Whoa. You guys know where this has been since you've been here.
Can't see why that would fall off because it's got very deep set holes.
Know if any vibration
Falling off from nonchalant.
Now that's really interesting. We did hear the sound from downstairs. It was a louder sound than it seemed through the replication, but definitely this on the floor, and you can't get it off there.
After a week living in the house, they certified it as intelligent haunting, partly because of the evidence you're about to hear for yourself.
We came here, we listened to Keith's story, we visited a priest. That priest told us something quite phenomenal, that there was evidence, or he believed, that the building, Keith's home, was built over, well, settlements of people who have passed away and maybe still be here.
So Phillips crawled underneath the home.
I was a bit concerned early on because we kind of lost him for about 20 minutes.
And came out with some freaky recordings.
Many of them are so clear. I'm just gobsmacked.
They also say they got recordings of spirits answering questions.
Is any Irish? Is here.
For his part, Linder feels vindicated.
We were dragged through the mud, my girlfriend especially, dragged through the mud as being hoaxers, pranksters, and attention seekers, none which are true.
This video showing a drawing of an upside-down man and the number 666 was taken after Keith Linder believes a powerful poltergeist attacked his Bothell home on Halloween 2 years ago. Have you ever been afraid?
Yeah.
That hasn't stopped him from continuing to search for an explanation.
What kind of brush or spray or what tool method could do this?
Keith says he and a friend put the door in the back of this truck to take it to a local paint store to be analyzed. When they got home, they noticed the roof of the truck bed cover now showed the same splatter pattern as the door.
So what do you think it is?
I think somehow by us putting the door back here, either, for lack of a better word, some type of weird ghost cross-contamination type deal.
We could be dealing with a location which is haunted, and a house has come along and built on it.
Steve Mera is a parapsychologist in the UK. He returned to the home with paranormal researcher Don Phillips after Keith told them he saw streaks coming from underneath a painting.
There's like a circle down, circle down, circle down.
It seems to be coming from a wall that doesn't contain water pipes. It's an outside wall with no plumbing in it.
There are no visible holes or source, and the streaks seem to originate at the wall hooks.
This is the entity that lives to his way of getting attention.
The researchers say the level of poltergeist activity has seemed to drop since their first visit.
We'll never prove 100% one way or another what these things that happen are, but I think it's important that if people are experiencing such phenomena that, you know, it's okay to put it out there and ask.
Keith says he's learned to respect the spirits, but decided it was time to start a new chapter in his life, in a new home. This video is from the day he moved out.
Me personally, I think this house is probably going to always be haunted.
The paranormal investigator is, have you contacted previous tenants of the home? And that's what kind of led me down that path. But to finally get several of them contact me back and say they've had similar experiences, and I was like, yeah, it does kind of give you a sense of relief and a sense of that you are not crazy. And it's also good knowledge for any investigator to have, to know that, okay, lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. We do know that other witnesses that are total oblivious of each other are reporting similar things. So that takes some of the weight off Keith's shoulders, off his girlfriend's shoulders in regards to this being real. And then the individuals from the UK who came down here before Chris and Nikki, they were able to interview these witnesses over the phone and get their statements over the phone to document their statements as well. So, yeah, all that helps me and help my girlfriend in regards to credibility. What's interesting enough that is half of this information Ghost Adventures had as well. They've had access to those same witnesses.
See, that I find that so interesting, because to me, if I'm coming in as a third party and I have more than, you know, one set of people, like you said, that don't know each other, it adds credibility to your claims, and to me takes away motivation from your claims for you to have wanted to hoax it and or embellish what was really going on there. So that's interesting to know that they had access to some of that and still came to the conclusions that they did. Now, Carissa, you stayed in the house for approximately 3 weeks, Nikki for about a week. Now, I hate to use this term because we're talking about Ghost Adventures. Was this a total lockdown, as in you did not leave that home for 3 weeks, or did you come and go, but, you know, obviously domiciled there at night and at sometime during the day?
Well, I honestly felt like I was on lockdown. You know, it's a really weird experience, and Nikki can vouch for this. When I was talking to her before she got there, once she got there, it was a little less lonely. But for most of the time I was there, you know, I'm in the house 24/7 with surveillance cameras on me 24/7, watching me eat, watching me talk on the phone, watching me sleep. And for me, I am a private person. I'm an introvert, which does surprise a lot of people, but it was very hard to get used to that. And then on top of that, you add all of the paranormal activity that is going on in the home. I did go out every now and then. I got out of the house, thankfully, because if not, I don't know. I felt like I was on the show Big Brother. And that's honest. Like, you know, the people watching me would talk to me through the cameras. And it was just a surreal experience. You feel like it's pretty crazy. So I did get out of the house a little bit, and then once Nikki came, what we actually planned to do was rig the house and set up tripwires, a shadow baby doll, which is a device that goes off when a shadow passes in front of it, and other devices among the house with cameras on them, and leave and see what happens.
Yeah.
Now, Nikki, can you echo some of her statements? Is that how it felt for you? Like you're on an episode of Big Brother and, you know, constantly being watched and things of that nature?
Yeah, that was weird. I felt, you know, I don't know, it's just a weird feeling. Because you could think about, like, oh, wow, what if it was like Truman Show, like the movie, like everything you do. But, you know, in addition to that, when we got to the house, the neighborhood, I just stood outside, I'm like, just has a weird, and I know this sounds very strange, but it has a weird vibe to it. I don't know.
Yes.
It seems off.
Okay.
You go in the house, and it's like, and I even said, it's like, it's almost like the land, the feng shui is off with the land, if that makes any type of sense whatsoever. It probably doesn't, but it just didn't feel like something just didn't feel normal. But, you know, the thing that we noted that I just don't even understand is that Chris and I both were sitting there, we're talking. We did not see any wildlife. While we were sitting, we would sit out on the front porch, kind of taking the sounds, you know, see if there was some of the sounds we heard, backyard, things of that sort. Not one bird. What is up with that? You know, when we did leave the house, right? You know, when we left the house, there are birds in Seattle.
Right. The one and only time I experienced that was I was living in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there was a tornado getting ready to come through our area. And it was that 15 minutes before the tornado was supposed to hit where everything went deadly silent. And that is such an eerie feeling. And at least at that point, I knew it was a natural cause of what was causing it. So to be there and not have that, I can imagine only adds to the eerie factor of it.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, you know, it's one of those things where you look around and you're just like, what's missing? You know, and you're like, you know, then you think about it and you're, you know, hey, I've not seen one, you know. Now, the domesticated animals, sure, yes. Mm-hmm. You know, people were walking a dog, a little tiny dog, and I saw a cat that actually was very well behaved, just sitting on its porch further down in the neighborhood. But, you know, other than that, it was just like not a bird. No bird droppings, might I add. You know, like I'm just one of those kind of people. I really look into things. And it just was weird.
So not only no animals, but no evidence of animals even being there when, you know, you weren't there or prior to you getting there.
Right, exactly.
That's strange.
It wasn't me.
Strange.
I didn't make them go away, so that was cool to know.
Well, Keith, I'll ask you the same kind of question I asked those two. Is it a weird feeling for you to have all those cameras in your house 24/7? I know you weren't necessarily there all the time, but is that a strange feeling for you?
Well, when I met Nikki and them last summer, I was in the process. I think the cameras were already taken down from the previous year, and when they asked me to, and they asked me kindly to put them back up, I was a little bit hesitant just because the activity was very low, and we learned previously that the activity seems to spike with cameras being added in the home. But when they were monitoring me last summer, and I mean they were monitored 24/7 around the clock. There was two dualities I was facing. Number one, my space and my freedom, but also the need to get this evidence out, the need to be believed. And they made a pretty good argument in the sense of their gesture and why they were here. This was not, I mean, I've turned a lot of investigators away who just here for the thrill factor and the wow factor, but they were very sincere in their approach. So when they erected up the cameras and then started documenting, I'd be at work, and some days I would go out of town. When I'm out of town, I'm usually out of town a week at a time. So they had total access to the house, which is probably an investigator's dream come true. The house is virtually
absolutely
empty. Yeah, so they're watching the house for a week, a whole weekend, a week and a half, and then I'm elsewhere, half a country away. Something goes bump or thud, Keith's over here. So that was good. And then finally, when both of them came a few weeks ago, the cameras being everywhere. By then I was sort of numb and used to it. It was kind of interesting watching, like Carissa mentioned, being on Big Brother, because now she has a camera in her room. I put her in one of the most active bedrooms in the house. And boy, was it active for her. And they're capturing it on camera and video. And then Nikki arrives, and she's bringing all this gear and equipment, and she's got this spread out all over of my bed, and I can't even see my sheets anymore because she's got all this equipment and gear. All my outlets got plugs in them, and she's asking for more outlets.
I needed more power. I brought so many cameras. Oh my gosh, and recorders. I'm honestly still reviewing because I had at any given time at least like probably 10 different devices going, the whole time that I was there. So yeah.
I felt good about that. They brought the game with them, and they brought the serious with them, and like I said, within a short period of time, she's started experiencing her own level of weirdness. And our friend who was watching remotely, like I said, we kept the remote formula going, who was on the East Coast, was capturing phenomena in their rooms, mind you, while the both of them were asleep. So, better their room than mine.
That's interesting. Well, guys, we've kind of gone over the background of the case and kind of what brought Nikki and Carissa to the home. So I guess let's get into the nitty gritty. Carissa, I'll start with you since you were there first. What did you experience, and what different types of things did you experience while you were in Keith's house?
So much. How much time do we have again? No, but you know, as soon as I walked in,
about an hour and 15 minutes.
I'll try not to take up too much of it. But as soon as I walked in, you know, I'm greeted by the UK team, and I sat down on the sofa to plug in my phone, got up, was mingling with everyone, introducing myself, getting to know them, and I had been up off the couch for about 10 minutes, and I saw out of the corner of my eye my phone be picked up off the arm of the chair and do a cartwheel, and I kind of looked at one of the UK people, and I was like, did you just see what I saw? And he said, yes. And that was the start of it. You know, after that, that night, I was in bed, and I felt something in bed with me, kind of pressing down on my hips. I was actually on the phone with Nikki. She was asking me how everything was going and how the house was, and I felt this pressure pushed down on me like I've never experienced before. You know, fast forwarding a little bit, it was 2 days in, and I'm off the phone, and I get off the phone, and a disembodied male's voice answers back to what I was talking about on the phone. A lot of disembodied voices for the first couple of days. Then, I want to say about the third, fourth day is when I started capturing actual evidence with audio recorder. You know, I captured this one that's on my YouTube, and it's on Keith's YouTube of the office. And I asked, did you do the office wall drawings? And I'll give you, I'm in this office by myself. There's no one in here with me. And a male's voice answers yes. That was the first major thing that I caught. You know, late at night, you would hear shuffling in the hallways. There's actually videotape of me because, like I said, I was being monitored 24/7. And there's videotape of me fighting with spirits in my sleep, actually arguing and saying, shh, let me sleep. And then you'll hear, like, this male's voice kind of answer. You can't really hear it, but it's funny. I'm literally fighting with a spirit. Now, if you want a really funny story, there was one night, you know, my phone, I put it on my bed, and I went to go brush my teeth. I came back, my phone wasn't there. I'm attached to my phone. Anyone that knows me knows that, like, I need my phone with me all times. It's like a social anxiety type thing. So my phone wasn't there. I started freaking out, looking all over the place for it. I couldn't find it. I've been through this before with spirits, so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go to bed. I went to bed a little upset and stressed out, I guess, and while in bed, I had the covers over me because I sleep in the cocoon type deal, which I learned about myself after watching videos of me sleeping. But, you know, and I hear this male's voice in my ear, and it sounds like it's under the covers with me, and I sit there for about 5 minutes trying to rationalize that it's probably just Keith. And I'm just going through all the rational thoughts first because that's how I am. And about 5 minutes after I heard the voice, you see me getting up and saying, F this, and like just getting out of bed because I couldn't rationalize it anymore. And you hear me actually knocking on Keith's door, waking him up and saying, are you pranking me? Because something that we would do is like we'd play little pranks on each other every now and then. And I was like, are you pranking me? And you hear him on the video saying, no, why? And I come back to the anonymous girl that was watching the cameras, and I'm like, did you hear that? She's like, no. I'm like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, were you recording? She's like, yeah. I'm like, you need to replay that and tell me if you heard a voice. And sure enough, there's a male's voice that sounds like it's under the covers with me talking to me. You can't really make out what it's saying. It's muffled, but it's one of the funnier stories of staying there. The list goes on and on. You know, there wasn't a time where something wasn't happening. And I mean that full-heartedly. You know, I would sit, there was this room that I called my phone booth room, which there was no cameras on me, so I could just sit there and gab on the phone sometimes because I am a girl. And I would hear these footsteps, like, kind of rushing up behind me like they were charging at me while I'm on the phone. Okay. You know, it's little things like that. It was really interesting, knocking all the time, like knocks on the walls. I actually got them to knock on command. And then the piece of evidence that just went viral with the Bible pages moving and having EVPs, you know, people can try to debunk that all they want, but I'm pretty real with the evidence I put out. Anyone that actually has worked with me knows that I am a psychic medium, but I try to debunk every single thing possible because that's just how I work and how I am. And that Bible, I must tell you, after that, actually creeped me out. You know, in the video, I seem really calm, and I'm like, good job. It's like reassuring. But Nikki can tell everyone for sure that after we caught that I didn't sleep well that night, especially after I heard the EVPs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What about
I was
you,
in her
Nikki? What
room.
did you
Well, let's
and
see.
I
Where
do
I
want to.
start?
Can I just jump in? Sorry, I know I talk so much, but I do want to jump in about the Bible thing again because it was getting late at night, and the Bible pages were still moving on their own. So we had to shut the Bible. I mean, they've already, according to Keith, burned the Bibles, you know. I couldn't leave it on a flammable sofa. So I shut the Bible to put it back on the table before we went to bed. It was like 3 a.m. And as soon as I shut the Bible, there was this loud boom in my bedroom.
Yeah, it was. It was weird.
Yeah, and after that, I
Very
had sleep paralysis attacks. So I think I offended something by shutting the Bible.
Well, Nikki, what did you experience and were you able to capture during your week in the house?
Well, one of the things that I noted the first night, I had, set some things up, and I was up in my room, and I was trying to talk to a few of my friends, and I always use my headset, just because I'm a weirdo, I guess. I don't know. I just don't like to hold my phone in my hand and walk around. So, or even lay around. So I've got the headset on, and I'm talking to some friends saying, hey, yeah, I got here, I'm okay, and, all that stuff. And I've never had where it was literally like a constant static in my headset. I'm like, what is going on? This is a wired headset. And I've never had that happen. I'm still using the same headset. Doesn't happen outside of his house. And I was like, why can't I make it better? So the next morning when I had gone outside on the front porch, pop in my headset, answer my phone, and I still have the static. I'm like, what is going on? I've never had that happen, with my Beats audio headphones and my iPhone. I don't get it. I've had the same thing with my computer. And it kind of got annoying because I was bothered by the fact that it was doing it. But one of the things was, I had recorders everywhere, cameras everywhere. When I went to review or all of it, actually, my goodness. Okay, the house has its own vibration, if that makes sense. It's insane, the amount of sound that I was able to pick up with the recorders, and I know that there's nothing in that space. Like, I have times where we're doing EVP sessions and we're sitting there, it's perfectly quiet. I document, I note if there's any outside noise that I hear, whether it be a knock, a bump, I'll state that, bump, knock, whatever, or a car going by, whatever it is. It just constantly, it was just very loud at times. It increases to an almost deafening tone when you're doing your review. But also the house seems to, and this is even weirder, I know, but it sounds like the house has a heartbeat. And
Really?
Yes. And